Welcome! Today's installation guide is going to show you how to install our Twin Stick Technologies or TST Sohn adapter mounting plate over here. Now we're going to assume that you've already installed your Sohn adapter and that you just need this oil tank to provide your two-stroke oil to your Sohn adapter. Before we dive in, let's go through and make sure that you have all the parts as well as the tools that you're going to need to complete this installation. So in the kit you should have the large tank for the two-stroke oil, your washer fluid tank, the mounting plate, and then you've got hose clamps, fasteners to mount the tanks, spacers, fasteners for the plate, and this special tube for the two-stroke oil. Now you may or may not have ordered a pump with your kit. If you did, your pump will be included in the kit. So just make sure you've got all of these parts before you get started. So the first thing that we need to do is remove this original washer tank fluid over here. Now it's got two bolts at the top that take a 10mm socket, so we'll get those in a moment. Right, and then way down here is the mounting for the window washer pump. We're going to need to undo that connector as well as the pipe over here. We'll do that once we can lift the tank out and we've got a little bit more access down there. Alright, so first things first, let's quickly pop this tank off. Right, to lift out this tank, there's a pin at the bottom. So you need to just pop that out and then we can lift up the whole tank. As I said, there's that pin I talked about a little earlier. So the next thing that we need to do now is remove this connector. And there's a tang there. You push the tang and pull the connector out. Right, now to remove the tube, you might need to just grab it with a long nose pliers. And what you want to do is just make sure that it rotates around, and then you should be able to slide it off. Now be very careful with this fitting because you can break it and then you'll be buying a new one. Alright, so we can now slide the tube out of the clip there, and this one over here I'm just going to grab a knife and slice this tape. Be careful you don't slice the hose. Alright, and that's the tank. Keep the tank because we're going to be removing this pump. If you haven't bought a new washer pump, we're going to be removing this one for our installation. So we've emptied all of the fluid out of the washer tank. The next thing that we need to do is remove this pump. Now be very careful if you try and pry it with your fingers or pull it like this. What you're going to do is you're going to snap this connector section off, like has happened with this one over here. So you can see that these tangs are all broken. So the best way that I've found to do it is to actually take a screwdriver, get the screwdriver in underneath there, and then just gently pry it until eventually it'll pop out. And you do it on one side and then on the other side, and you just keep going and eventually it will pop out like that. Right, once it's out, you can pull out the washer pump. Now you can also buy a separate or new washer pump. I have put a link in both at the end of this video as well on the website as to this part. So the other way to do it is just to buy a complete new pump, and then you don't have to disassemble it, but we are disassembling this one because we're going to reuse this pump. Now in order to install the new pump, what I like to do is to actually pull this seal off the pump like that, and then grab some good old dish soap and just lube up this seal so that it can slide into place nice and easily. And you pop the seal into the tank like that, and then you just take the washer pump and you pop it into place like that. And there we go. Our washer pump is now installed on our tank, and we can go ahead with the rest of the installation. Right, so the tank comes on the side over here, and what we're going to do is just install the two small bolts that hold it into place. Right, the next thing you can do is remove this little plastic nut over here, and it just screws off. You might need to get a screwdriver behind it, as sometimes they're a bit sticky, but you can just pop that nut off. Now, this car that we're demoing on today does not have any insulation in it. Right, so if your RX-8 has the sound deadening material in that this one does, you'll still need to remove this little button down here. And if it gets stuck, just grab your screwdriver and help pry it off with a screwdriver as you're unscrewing it. And once that's off, you're going to install your spacer and then install your plate. Exactly the same, it's just going to go over the sound deadening material. Right, so the first thing you do is take the number 10 spacer and slide it over the stud at the bottom, and then grab the long bolt and the long 28 spacer. Put the long bolt through this hole, through the 28 spacer, and then lower this plate into place here. What I like to do is just retain this bolt at the top, just get it to catch like that, and then you slide this bottom one over that spacer there, and then you can grab the number 3 spacer over here and slide it through to that bolt over there. Right, before you tighten up the bolts, you just grab this little nut and you slide it onto that bottom stud over there. There's not much thread on this one, so I'll go ahead and tighten this one up first. Right, once that's tight, you can go ahead and tighten up this one. And then lastly, you can go ahead and tighten up this one. Great, so now you have the plate installed. Right, we forgot to install the tube that goes onto the washer pump. If you do that, the easiest way to fix it is just to rotate it, to push it back on, and you can then rotate it back into position and drop that hose down there. Don't forget to grab your harness and connect your harness back on there. So washer fluid tank is done, it just needs to be filled up. So the next thing we need to do is to prepare the hose for the tank install. Now I'm not going to show you the Sohn side of the connection of this hose, because that would be a separate video. But for our purposes, what you're going to do is grab this little spring clip that we have in the kit. You're going to open it, slide the hose through it, leaving enough to install the tank over there. You can just release that. So hose is now ready for installation. So on the tank side, I'm just going to grab a little bit of soap again. Just a little bit, you don't want to put too much on over here, and just a little bit helps to slide the hose on. We can then grab the hose and slide it onto the tank like that. Then grab your pliers and the little spring clip and slide it over the barb section over there. Now this is quite tight, but it will go on, just be patient. Great stuff. So the hose is now installed, and we can now pop the tank into place and grab the 2 screws in the kit and install them. One goes there. You might see it's very tight over there. I just rotated the little clip for the AC. But install the 2 screws, and then you can go ahead and tighten them up. Right, so we've done the install now. Our 2 tanks are nice and tight. Our bolts are all nice and tight. We've got our plug reinstalled and our washer hose connected. You can go ahead and route the pipe for the oil any way you would like to. Try and keep a constant downward slope towards the Sohn adapter so that the oil can gravity feed in. But then you go ahead and fill up with your 2-stroke oil and your washer fluid. All right, and that's it. So our installation is complete. Our tanks are mounted, and this really wasn't such a big job. It's one that you can do very quickly and makes a big difference when you have that Sohn adapter installed.